Beautiful. Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing on with our town council meeting. We have Whip City Fiber here to discuss high-speed fiber optics with the town of East Longmeadow.
All right.
You want to introduce yourself? That would be
Sure. I'll introduce the group. Tom Flaherty, General Manager, head of the Wesfield Gas and Electric, Whip City Fiber. Katrine Ferreter, who's our Director of Sales and Customer Service, and Andrew Short, our Key Accounts Sales Manager.
Thank you. So I'll take it from here. So
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
I draw the
I'm just a pretty face.
Yeah.
Katrine, by the way.
Katrine. My parents were too cheap.
That's the night out. We would still be talking if it didn't get dark. Exactly. She's so excited about this project.
Yes.
So she gets going.
Yeah. So that was a perfect segue. I actually was the customer service rep with the pilot area. And then we worked through building trust and then basically working through fiber service area. So I'll talk more about that. And then my main role was being the liaison for our community partners that were the unserved communities. So really working start to finish with fellow municipalities. So we're going to, I know it's late, just briefly describe what our partnership is and how we can work with towns and really work to provide fiber to home networks. And one of the benefits is it's East Longmeadow's network. So it is your network. So we'll talk about that. So I know that you had already made the vote for establishing a municipal light plant, the MLP. So you're already one step further. And then Tom will talk about the bonding and financing. And then we'll talk about the process with Make Ready, administration and poll applications, as well as marketing, communications, and support, which I know Marilyn, you and I had talked about that. How do we increase that take rate? And I know Ryan and I had talked about a 60% take rate, and it's really building trust, education, and then word of mouth through your realtors, friends, and family. And you can stop me if you have any questions. So who is Wesfield Gas and Electric? We are a municipality that's actually hitting the 125 mark, 125 years of gas and electric just next year. And we do have over 18,000 electric meters. And Tom and I were actually just looking, we have to update this slide. Next month, we'll be at over 16,000 Whip City Fiber customers here in Westfield, as well as our community partners. Our community partners actually have almost 920 miles of plant, and we are currently active in 19 communities, and we do have 9,000 subscribers in our partnering communities. Basically, start to finish, we'll talk about. And then over 10,500 gas customers. So Westfield's Gas and Electric, we have 125 employees, and we're all local. So we're basically walking billboards. So our customer service, they handle gas, electric, and fiber. And then we do have a 24/7 dispatch center that does handle emergency response, as well as dispatch for storm repair, as well as through the community partners. So we are very busy and we all wear many hats, but we are passionate about what we do. So again, I just want to emphasize it is your network. So we basically go at the discretion of the town for you to set your rates. And basically when the subscriber pays, when they're actually hooked up, it goes into your bank account. So you have control over those funds. So what's critical is the design and engineering, which we did have a meeting on site 2 weeks ago with Precision Valley Communications. Nick Sarnelli actually lives here in East Longmeadow, but they are our design and engineering firm. So they will vet out all the homes to make sure that each home is in the design, because that is critical planning for the future. So we are going to look at plant miles, and that's what we had provided the estimate to the town of East Longmeadow, as well as if there's any multi-dwelling units. So if there's any condo associations, we want to make sure that each home is in the design. The biggest unknown and the most time consuming that we're working through, is the Make Ready and poll application administration. So basically we work with the town. You have to apply for rights to all the polls in East Longmeadow. And that is the most time consuming because we are relying on the utilities, Eversource, Verizon, National Grid. There is National Grid. And there is a section when we were talking with Ryan and Tom that is served from Eversource. So we would have to apply through Eversource. We do have a good working relationship. However, they do work in FIFO order, first in, first out. So that is the most time consuming and the biggest unknown for the Make Ready, because they do have to do adjustments to the poles so then the town of East Longmeadow can attach the fiber. I will say we are proud that we disputed and challenged the poles. So a lot of times the utilities might give a cost for the poles of $1,500, but we might challenge because it should have been replaced 30 years ago, and we call it overturning. So then at that point, we save the town's money. So with our community partners, they were unserved or underserved. We saved them over $4 million that the state actually wanted us to overturn poles with Comcast. So those retirees are former linemen, former engineers. So they look at a pole and they know exactly what they're looking at when it should have been replaced. So we have overturned quite a few poles in the town of West Springfield, which we do have a current executed agreement with, and we are working through that with the town of Hamden, which we also have an executed agreement with. The next step is as soon as we want to time it at a good time when we go out to bid for the construction, because once we get those license agreements, then at that point, the town of East Longmeadow can attach the fiber. But again, from start to finish, we're here to be partners with you to kind of work through those challenges and project manage to ultimately hooking up the subscribers and setting them up for activation, service activation with your established rates. There's a lot of information. Is there any questions so far? So the next question, Tom is going to assist on how can East Longmeadow fund this project? And we are going to go over based on what we in Westfield have done.
Unlike the school project where you can maybe have some kids sell some candy bars, this project actually funds and pays for itself as long as you get the subscribers, right? So when we did a 60% take rate, you have a potential dwelling units, or so that's your commercial locations and your residential and multi-dwelling units of 5,712 locations here. At a 60% take rate, that brings you just less than 3,500 locations. The estimated build right now, and this is just an estimate, is at $17,655,000. So with that, the debt service on that based on 4% over 20 years is at $1.299 million. The income after paying for your debt service before any other expenses like insurance, and if you have a board that's a paid board, if you have any other administrative costs, is just over $1 million of net income per year. So it's fantastic. On another note, if you don't get a 60% take rate, your next question might be, what if it's 50%? You're still making, in that case, over $650,000 a year for that. That was a huge concern for many of the Hilltown communities that we worked with. We worked with 20 communities, built them from start to finish. This was their biggest procurement to get like $1 million bond or a $2 million bond, and they were physically scared to death about failing their communities and bankrupting them. They're all turning a profit less than a year into their projects in 2020, which is fantastic, right? So this is something where at minimum you're looking at over $500,000 a year on less than a 50% take rate. On 60%, you're looking at $1 million per year. A bit of advice coming from managing a municipal light plant like Westfield: I would allow that entity to save a little bit of money before you start dispersing that money back to your community.
What did you calculate a minimum take rate just to cover costs? Did you?
Well, just to cover cost would be probably right around 33 to 34%. I did a 40, 50, and 60%. 40% take rate, you were still making over about close to $265,000.
So a 35% take rate is roughly mandatory in order to cover costs. Right. Okay.
Yep. And that's exactly, believe it or not, that's what we came out with back in 2013, 2014 when Westfield was doing this, and that was even before streaming was a hot topic. Westfield, we did it on our own to apply just another service to the residents and really set it up just to break even. Right now in Westfield, we're pretty close to a 60% take rate. We still have about 12 to 15% of the city to serve, or at least have passings there. Our total all-in cost will be around $35 million. We took out a bond for $15 million back in 2015. And that build out was projected to do 70%. So what we did after that was we waited a couple of years as we had that income, we reinvested that income. So there's a variety of ways to do this. You can do, parts of your community. You can do marketing that says, hey, this area wants to have, has 80% take rate, so let's build that one first. So you get some revenues coming in that can then pay off some of your other areas, so that you might not need to take out a full $17 million bond. You might want to just take out a $13 or $14 million bond, get your main backbone fiber built, and then build out your other areas. And then you have that other revenue out to build over the next couple of years.
And then to put it in perspective, Westfield 97 fiber service areas, and then your community would be about 20 to 25 fiber service areas. We would have that exact number once they continue to do that walkout. So
just so you know, the example that we have here with the different colors, that gives you an idea of your fiber service areas, or FSAs. When you hear us, there's way too many acronyms in our businesses, from gas, electric, and fiber. But when you look at that area, you can see a condensed area would be a more populated area, and then you look where Ralph lives, and that's like and Ralph's chickens. So that's the yellow or purple, I think, down on the bottom from a meeting that we had earlier this year. But it gives you an idea of that spread. Some of the other benefits that I know East Longmeadow has, and I don't think I'm jumping ahead, but I know you have a telecom hut located somewhere near here, right? Is there one across the street or something? A telecom hut? Oh.
We purchased the property that is in the center of our physical existing municipal fiber network.
Yep. So that, some of the infrastructure that you already have could save you some money, but first, the full estimate that we have here. So.
Thank you. And then, so we do provide the turnkey solution, so start to finish, working with our team. And then basically, ultimately, the goal is to become we will be the internet service provider. And that's really, you all have busy lives. You leave it over to us to handle the 24/7 technical support. And every time that we look at our email, there's a positive feedback from a customer saying, the technician, we had just an email just the other day where the customer actually had MS, and they fell, and the technician caught them and cleaned up. It was one of our new hires, and cleaned up the mess, made sure that they were okay. So the customer called customer service, sent an email, and really said, this guy needs an award. So we're nominating him. He's one of our new employees over the last month. So he's been nominated for a safety award, just helping the customer, because we really just pride, again, walking billboards. So the customer service, that's the group that I manage. We have 12 customer service reps who do the onboarding. So if you want to have senior rates or whatever, however you establish your rate structure, we would accommodate through the website, through the billing process. And there's also affordable connectivity plan. So if you qualify for food stamps, or you qualify for low income fuel assistance and all of that through the national verifier, then you can actually qualify for $30 off your bill. So if it's $85, it would be $50, and you're not losing any money because that's a federal funding program. So we administer that on your behalf. So we onboard the customer, whether it's an underground drop or an overhead drop, we work through that. And then also the billing, the monthly billing. So it is prorated. So the customer is paying in advance, and we do run a tight termination process. So if the customer doesn't pay, we do terminate those customers for non-pay. And if you do want to charge an administrative fee, it goes back to your account. So for instance, the town of Blandford, it's $30 reconnect fee. That's what Westfield does as well. So you would receive that fee. It's an administrative fee for those customers that don't pay their bill. But as soon as they pay their bill, it is a remote reconnect. So we take care of that, as well as emergency response. A lot of times we're seeing it where the trees, the primary might actually burn, and then the fiber burns. So we do have the truck rolls. We have 2 on-call technicians, fiber technicians. So the truck roll takes place within an hour and a half to triage from the truck roll, making sure they have the materials to repair. And at that point, we're communicating to the town administrators, as well as the individual subscribers that were impacted by that fiber burn, through our marketing department, marketing communications, which actually consists of a marketing director and 2 other marketing. They run around the clock, depending on the time frame, because communication is key. When am I going to get my service back? And all of that. Is there any questions so far? Yes, Connor?
You mentioned one about like termination of service, whether it was like payment, but even if someone just like chose to cancel, is there like equipment on site that the resident is required to return to you?
So that's actually the only thing that we own, Wesfield Gas and Electric, Whip City Fiber, is the router, just so we can troubleshoot and then really do like remote upgrades and all of that. But we would recommend if they're terminating because they're moving, leave it there. So if Marilyn moves in, welcome Marilyn. Let us just get you your we'll get you your new password. Welcome to Whip City Fiber, East Longmeadow, and all of that. But then if they really don't want the equipment, either they want to use their own equipment, that's entirely fine. There's no discount. But if they really just are frustrated for whatever reason, they can get rid of the equipment.
Okay, cool.
But that is the only asset that we own. Just to troubleshoot, it's much easier to see if there's any issues. We can predict if the routers are down. So if we predict that there's multiple routers, is it a fiber that's been burned? Is it a bigger issue, and all of that?
It's actually pretty cool.
Yes.
It's all like that.
Yeah, so we're always happy to give a tour of our facility. John Lear is very enthusiastic. Marilyn thinks I'm enthusiastic. He's way more enthusiastic.
And that's a compliment.
Yeah, thank you. I take that as a compliment. But to your point, Connor, we do have the network operator side of it. So we're actually working with our community partners on building redundancy and resiliency, because many of them, everyone's using their cell phones now. They don't have a home landline, although we do offer that. But we want to make sure that the network is breathing. And then if there is any issues, that it's either all hands on deck or we triage. And now with we call it the RRR, redundancy, resiliency, and reliability, that it self-heals if there's any sort of outage, then it'll go to the other provider. So we are working on those rings, if you will, with our community partners. But then we do have a whole network team that, again, it's at our operations center. They work 24/7 with dispatch. And then especially if there's some sort of incident, we're all hands on deck. We communicate through the Teams platform. And then it's important to keep the towns up to date on what's going on, because these are your neighbors.
So a customer will be able to get phone service also,
Yep.
so they can pay for our internet program and a phone program.
Yeah, absolutely. Through us. We use the UMA office, or not UMA office. We do use UMA office for the commercial customers, but we do use UMA, which is a VoIP service, voice over IP. But we don't provide it, but we would suggest it if they have a UPS backup under uninterruptible power supply. So that way, if there is a power outage, their phones would still work, because in the event that there's not a power outage, their internet wouldn't work for their phones.
Right.
And they can keep their same number, because a lot of people, it's history, their phone number, so they can keep their same phone number, a fax machine. So customer service would set them up through the onboarding process, and then you can establish that rate for your phone customers.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. The only, so there's no taxes and fees, but the phones do have taxes and fees. So if a customer is paying just for internet, there's no taxes and fees, but there is the federal phone taxes and fees. So here you can see, these are the community partners. And as I mentioned, we're at the 9,000 mark of subscribers in our community partners. And the first two were Alford and Otis. And again, these were in fact unserved or underserved, but there was a lot of hurdles that we overcame. And you can see how widespread that we are, but we do have technicians geographically placed so we can have that response time. But I do want to point out, if there is a outage due to a pole break, we do have to wait for the utility to set the pole. We'll triage the situation and communicate until National Grid replaces the pole. And then at that point, we can attach the fiber for the emergency response. But you can see this is a long time coming, but we're very proud. And I know me personally, just working, especially during COVID, these customers didn't have any internet, and just kind of partnering with them. How do we get them hooked up? I know that you are a served community, but there is something valuable in your own network. It's your network. It's going back into the community. You're providing an option for the customers, the consumers, and then telemedicine. And then I know if you have kids, the iPads, everything's now Wi-Fi, your Ring camera, and all of that. But you can see these are the communities, and we are proud to say that over the last year since Tom's come on board, we have renewed contracts for 10 years with our community partners. And with that, then we can staff internally on technicians, ramp up on customer service, as well as bucket trucks. So before COVID, bucket trucks were $125,000. There wasn't as much lead time, but now we're really planning for the future because I think it's upward to 400,000.
Well, for the small bucket trucks, they're up close to 200,000. We ordered a truck almost 3 years ago for the large line truck, which was 190, and it's supposed to be delivered by the end of this year at 340. So
We've experienced.
you saw the little graph there.
Right.
High school. It's the same thing. It's really the costs have been out of control. So right now, we're holding costs pretty steady. But the lead times, for fiber is going out about 70 weeks right now. So it's, we're ordering it. We're ordering in advance and planning for the West Springfield build that we're just about to start. We ordered their fiber almost 2 years ago, right after we signed the contract with them.
Thank you.
Yep.
And so I just want to, so again, it is your network and it is something, it's a selling point, and it is the future. Fiber is the future. And it's crazy to see everyone coming to us, and we're so proud of how far we've come, but it is the future because you want to reinvest. You're not, when you're paying your bill, you're not going back to the investor owned companies, the competitors. You're paying your community. So the revenue is going back to reinvest in your community. And again, it's providing that value. And then with your own network. So here we just have showing the home, and then the town owns the assets, and then WG&E owns the router. So we encourage customers to pay online. So it's all through ePay, but then it goes right in. We would recommend that you establish a separate MLP bank account for auditing purposes. So when the subscriber pays, have it separate enterprise funding, I think it is.
Yep. But all the financials get tracked with us as well, but we don't handle your money. So at the end, at each month, we will send you an invoice for what you owe us for the services, and you have what's left over. So none of the money comes through us, but we do handle all the billing and customer service.
And so when we engage with the communities, we do, as we were at the East Longmeadow night out, we want to have as many events. We're happy to have our customer service tech support team here to build that trust, answer questions, and then talk about cutting the cord. How are they going to stream their services, the security systems, the phones, and all of that. But then we would have we should have brought it today, but it's like a mock home, because people are sensitive. It's their home. What is this going to look like? Is it going to be clean? Are they going through the floors? Which we certainly wouldn't do that, but we would have a mock home setup to walk through that. But here you can see the diagram from the multi-service terminal out on the pole. And then you can see if it's an aerial drop. That's simple. It's just one appointment for the customer. And then the undergrounds, that's a little more complex. So if there is spare conduit, we would utilize that, which would be cost savings. But then if they don't have conduit, then we would do trenching. So we would have to call in SigSafe and all of that. But that's what we manage with our operations group and customer service. And typically the standard install, it's brought service to the first floor. So I know previous competitors like in Wesfield, Comcast might have left it in the basement. We recommend it on the first floor. So that's covered in a standard drop. But then if you do want it out in the garage, we would work with the customer through all of that entire process, depending if they want more coverage or a separate drop for their business that might be in the garage.
If they have an older home with thicker walls or brick walls inside, we'll put in an additional router or plume setup, so it can be a mesh system right inside the home.
So the next is each town has their own website, so we can update any information that you have, any questions. So you would have your own frequently asked questions. And then basically when the customers enter it, it would be, if you're charging $85 for gigabit speed, or if you have a a senior rate, we can go through that verification process. Just a quick, show us your license. You are a senior. Excellent. That's all we need. So now you could be at that different service here. And then, however, so this is our CRM, customer relationship management system. So it's actually interesting. We worked with the product developers and they are utilizing it with other communities, but we really worked through the kinks. So we're proud to say that they're using what we had. But if all of you wanted access to it, you could, and then that way you can nudge your neighbors. But it's
To sign up,
to sign up.
not to pay, but to sign up.
Sign up and pay.
Yeah.
But there's really, and this is actually where we would work with your treasurer to reconcile the bills being paid. There's a billing platform and collections platform. But then if you are, however you want to deploy your fiber to the network throughout your community, we can accommodate. So if it's based on demand and construction costs and you want to kind of have a competition, this system would show you who has 20%. We can include the costs of that fiber service area, which areas have 50%. All of that. But this is where the system, you'll see when they're activated, you can see the notes as well, how many tech calls. So really it's cloud-based. Sometimes you don't want any information, but if it's for the city council meeting, you might want to jump on. So this is the convenient online billing. When we were kind of talking through it, it was challenging because we can't take payments if someone was to send us a check, because we don't have access to your bank account. And then really the cost of postage. So to make it more beneficial for cost savings, we have implemented all e-pay, and customers actually were more than willing to. We were kind of surprised when we said, no, it's only e-pay. So customer service handles all of the electronic payment. They can set up auto pay, and our spiel is to encourage people to sign up through checking account. So that way you're saving on not credit card fees, but then if the customer signs up for checking account, every little bit helps with the town-owned network. And this is another picture that we're very proud of. On the left-hand, bottom left-hand, those are our in-house fiber techs. So when we deployed, and our fiber foreman and supervisor, when we deployed fiber 7 years ago, we were outsourcing to Elm Electric. But really the benefit is, when you see Pete Bitsis driving around, you know who Pete is. So we are staffing accordingly with our fiber techs, and then our storekeepers. We have stores. So you can see, as Tom mentioned, the materials. We're happy to give anyone a tour, but the materials, we always have materials on hand for the storm. And then you can see on the right-hand side, that's just a picture of our bucket trucks. We even had Jamie Sincata, he's our fiber utility supervisor now. In order to get fiber, he actually went in a kayak and a canoe to bring fiber across the lake. So we take it, we're very passionate to expand Whip City Fiber, and we're happy to be here today. So is there any questions?
I'm not sure.
Let me start.
Go ahead.
Yes.
The online billing. Have you had any pushback from elderly customers? I'm a businessman, and they absolutely will not go online to pay their bill. They will make me drive all the way to Wesfield to hand me the check in person, or they'll drive all the way to my house to hand it to me.
So with all the 20 community partners, they all have to pay online. So at that point, what we do is, if it is a separate info session, so say we're here at the Council on Aging, let us help you set it up. Let us help you get your checking account, and then we'll show you the benefits. It gets a little tricky if they pay up front. So say they want to say, oh, hey, I want to pay, Ralph, I want to pay for the full year. It gets challenging on the reconciliation when it comes to the billing.
Yeah.
We try, so we have not accommodated any customers with the 9,000, just because it gets, when it comes to terminations, keeping track of that. But we would help them set up an email address. We could help them set up auto pay and all of that. It is challenging, but I will confidently say we've worked through that with our community partners.
Thinking now we may have, like I said, more issues, but 20 years from now, I mean, it's just like 10 years ago, no one wanted to pay online. Now everyone seems to pay their bills online.
Yeah, every weekend for about 3 years in Westfield, we held streaming classes. We When we first started, we actually installed antennas in people's houses. Then we became an antenna company. Oh, it's coming in staticky, you know, so we stopped doing the antennas. We still promote them. I have an antenna in my house. I never thought I would. But it gets about 60 channels. You know, it gets your 2240, you know, channel 3 out of Hartford, channel 30, you know, it gets and all these sub channels, you know, the 22-1, 2, 3, whatever. But it's great. You actually realize how much TV you really don't watch. You can get YouTube TV, you know, that can also stream local television as well. They can get your NESN. That was one of the biggest things. You were surprised at how many people actually watch the Red Sox. But that we help and we hold the classes on the streaming. Streaming's come a long way too. But then on the antennas, it's pretty simple. You just press the home button. You can go to HDMI 1, 2, 3, 4, however many ports are on your TV, or you can go to the antenna, and that brings you to you know, just standard surfing television. So, and if you only want HGTV and the Hallmark channel with the Christmas movies, those are fantastic. They might kiss at the end, so I don't want to give it away, but anyway, you know, you can pay your, you know, 10 if you only want that channel and you do it off of Prime or Netflix or whatever. You pay your $10 a month or $15 a month if you want HBO, and you can really choose what you want to watch, and then that's it. So it's pretty simple.
But we are, to add to what Tom said, we are working, I believe we had talked about it, Maryland, with Hamden Village. It is a senior neighborhood. It's all underground. And we had a kind of a kickoff. So this is what we're going to be doing. There was a lot of questions. So we're continuing. We have weekly meetings with them. It's about 250 residents. So we have weekly meetings with the property owners as well as champions in the neighborhood. So there's 2 champions, but they're like, so-and-so is having difficulties. So we actually also partnered with the Wesfield Tech Academy. So there's students that are tech students that actually are at the Southwick seniors, and then they're at Hamden Village, and then they're at the Westfield Senior Center, and they just assist the seniors with setting up their new iPad, setting up email addresses, working through billing. And then ultimately, after the customers are hooked up, which will be in fall, we'll have a follow-up info session. So now you have the service. What's next? Is it billing? Is it signing you up for affordable connectivity plan? Is it you need help with that antenna because you really want to watch the local channels? So we would work through that process with the town. And if you have any condos or any type of development that you want those info sessions to increase take rate, but also make sure that the customer's a satisfied customer.
I think that's the main thing, satisfied customers. If they're satisfied, they're going to stay with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's also high speed. It's 1 gigabit to the home. It's not, you know, you're paying for 250 megabits with what I was doing with Comcast, and I was getting 10 up and down wireless. When I switched over to Whip City Fiber before I was in this position, it went to 700 up, 700 down. So the speeds are really incredible. Yeah.
Oh, do you want to? Quick question. So I saw the cost is $84.99. Is that the cost, or is that just a number we're kind of tossing around?
You decide.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
We have experience with that.
Well, and the reason I'm asking is because I want to sell this, and I think that's what the internet is now through Spectrum. And I want, when people say to me, well, why am I going to switch? I'm paying that right now. I want to know what to say to them.
It's faster, it's more reliable, and it's local.
Okay.
Sorry.
Got it.
Means
What's that?
any profit, let's per se, goes back to the town.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
It's way more better.
Yeah.
It's wicked better.
Yes, you got to get the other extra.
Awesome.
You got this.
I'm a baby boomer, so I don't, this stuff is a challenge in some ways for me. And yet I'm learning. And initially I thought you were going to provide what Spectrum does, but I'm sounding like you do anyway. I mean, you talked about all the movie channels. You talked about all the things that I get with
everything is going to streaming.
And
absolutely everything, including Comcast and Spectrum. they're going to eventually push everybody to streaming.
Even though you're not considered a cable television service, you will, through streaming, provide TV programs.
We point them in the right direction.
Got in your head, Ryan? No.
Yeah.
Right
Point them in the right direction. So that's still getting that's
All right.
through like YouTube TV or Prime or Netflix.
I mean, we use
Link-
those things now.
By the
Yes,
path.
yeah, yeah. So this is we provide the fire hose of data so that you can get those things through your streaming services.
So would you have access to current news? I mean, I'm married to a news junkie. And so, it has to be news programs and whatnot.
Yeah, you have options to get it for free where you can just go to like wwlp.com. If you're Fox News, you can go to foxnews.com, CNN.com, MSNBC.com, and just stream like right live off their website.
You have to know how to get to it.
Yeah, there's a website
not
that,
hard. Yeah.
and I could send you.
Yeah, no, trust me, we'll train you.
They're gonna
I
come in and
trust
train you. That's
One of our highest demographics is, what's the right word?
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it.
I don't want to say elderly, but our older people, because they were willing to learn. When you look at somebody that was say 55 to 60, they either could afford Comcast at $300+ a month, or they, because they were so used to hitting 834 for ESPN or 822 for 22 or 840 for channel 40, they are too lazy to learn. But now that every year Comcast for Westfield goes up $15, they're like, okay, finally they reached their marginal breaking point. So they came over and they're like, why didn't I do this 5 years ago? And I'm like, well, I told you so. Nice.
like 44.
Well, when we chatted about this on National Night Out, I was saying, I don't know if our community is different. We have elderly housing. We have the housing authority. Which a number of buildings. We have congregate care. All of these issues are there for people who are aging in place. And so, not issues, but facilities. And so, I'm sure that the take rate in those areas may be limited, but I don't know. I don't know what experience you've.
But with the benefits of the affordable care plan and those things, to get that extra $30 is super helpful, and we make it easy because entities like us, we had the choice as a internet service provider whether or not we wanted to do that. We did that, and of our 16,000 customers, we have almost 1,000 that take that benefit. So that's a huge benefit, and it's a huge number. It's eye-opening to say, wow, there's that many people in need when you look at that percentage, and we'll help walk people through it so they're not embarrassed in any way or anything like that. It's just like, no, you have this benefit, you qualify for the benefit, it's there for a reason. We'll help you walk through that process. But again, the other upside is it took us from, we're over by the turnpike in Westfield. It took us about 20 minutes to get here. We're not that far away. And I think 3 of our fiber linemen live in Springfield and they take the truck home, so it's
right here.
What's that?
Bill Braywood lives.
Oh yeah, our new fiber foreman lives right here in East Longmeadow as well. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But we would work with those customers that don't have that comfort level yet. And then there is a website that I can send to you a follow-up. So you basically say, what do I want? What does my husband want? What do the kids want? Okay, these are the 3 recommended services. Streaming services, whether it's Peacock, whether it's Hulu, whether it's whatever it is. And then you can actually cancel. The benefit of the streaming services is you're not tied into a contract. So it doesn't work for you or what have you. But we do have multiple marketing and info sessions to answer those questions. And then typically it's more of the one-on-one saying, okay, well, what do you want? Because you're not going to want the same as Jonathan. You're not going to want the same as me. So it's really, what does the consumer want? But it's too challenging if we were to partner with them to keep up with, to offer that service. But we provide the bandwidth, and then that way you can hook up all your devices and all of that with the Wi-Fi. But I can assure you that we would, if there's certain areas like Westfield Housing, so we're working with the Westfield Housing Group throughout Westfield to do marketing sessions. Some of them are the younger generation, some of them are the seniors. And then we are working on the what's the one on Granville Road
Over 50.
at Bill Park?
Oh, yeah, and over 55.
Over
Yeah.
55, but we have reached out and we have about a 65% take rate in those communities. Because it's the buy-in, it's the grandchildren coming over saying, oh, it's this easy. This is that easy. And I'll tell you, so my dad's, he's from Ireland. He's an Irishman. Electricity. He uses an iPad.
I thought you were going to give his age. Please don't do that.
70. We've got the Brit next to me now.
Yeah.
But my dad's.
We're all trying to get along with peace talks here.
But he's on his iPad every morning getting the Irish news and all of that. And he streams. We don't have Comcast. We don't have. So if he can do it and he's a roofer, I've got faith.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not exclusive. You can still keep Spectrum for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
You don't have, it's not, you have to switch everything.
Correct.
You can still keep Spectrum for TV if you're really married to it.
Sure.
Well, I'm trying not to be. It's too expensive.
Yeah.
That's one of the keys, and they're everything, and not to, keep besmirching, or if that's a better word, but Spectrum and Comcast, but hey, we'll do this bundle and we'll do this, but their key is to get you on it for a year or 2 years and then, jack you back up and until you forget about it and then you remember and it's like, oh geez, I have to do this. But they'll say, oh, we'll do a internet only, but it's 200 megabits per second, if you're lucky, and you're still paying that same 85. But the 85 runs out after 12 months, and then after 12 months, what does it run to? And it's like 159. So it jumps up significantly. We're not running any specials. We're not trying to hook people in. Again, all the pricing is up to you. We have, I think one of our community partners, they're, might be like 115 per month. But a lot of those towns, they had like HughesNet satellite at 3 megabits per second that they were already paying, $200 a month for. So there was some extremely large costs. We had one doctor in Alford who was paying $1,200 something a month for internet. And then we had to write a letter to the IRS, make a call to the IRS when he went down to 115. So that there wasn't fraud going on or whatever. But it's funny. There's some quirks out, quirky people out there. There's some quirks to the system out there. But really, it was eye opening for me to go through all this, and it's really a great program.
I just wanted to add one other program that we're releasing is working with the realtors. So again, it's the word of mouth, and then we are offering them kind of a stipend, so $20 gift card. But basically, the realtors now are going to be promoting Whip City Fiber. So then I actually get realtors reaching out. When are you going to West Springfield? When are you going to Hamden, East Longmeadow? So they're really the salespeople when they're selling the home. I don't know how often homes turn over here, but really it's just that word of mouth. I know Anna's like, I'm going to sell it now, but then getting the positive feedback from people that have it or are excited about it. So in Westfield, we're excited to be implementing that program. So we're going to go to the local realties, do a meet and greet. They'll have a assigned customer service rep. So that rep would know, okay, so East Longmeadows, it's $85. Oh, perfect. Your salesperson, Maria. Oh, great. She referred you. That's awesome. Let me get you set up for service. So again, it's that personal touch. Mm-hmm. So we are excited to implement that because the realtors are selling all over Western Mass.
Right. Good point.
Rollout. Everything went perfect. What are we looking time frame as far as, I think the poll applications take the longest, and what are we looking at? Up to a couple years?
Right now in West Springfield, we signed a contract in West Springfield in June of 2021. We have still yet to hook up the first customer with the poll application process. We submitted all the poll applications, I believe it was by the end of September of that year. So there is work actually happening. The polls are being replaced. So the poll applications would be with Verizon and National Grid. Not sure if that process would be any different, but right now I would say it's a minimum of 2 years out going through the poll application areas. There are some already existing or pre-existing infrastructure here in East Longmeadow, which I know we've been analyzing to see if we can use some of that. I know in one of these examples by the water tower, there's already like a 12 count fiber or 48 count fiber that goes to the water tower. So there was talk about possibly going in, there, I don't know if it's an underground area that's there that you could go and hook up and just say, all right, it only going to cost a few $100,000 to do this neighborhood.
Woods, right?
That, okay. It's
right.
You can look at possibilities of using your existing system to start serving some customers so they have an idea of what it is. And then those customers help sell it from that word of mouth to say, wow, this is great. The only downside of that is then those people that live down in the yellow and purple area, Ralph, they're like, hey, when you coming here? So in Westfield, we had a kind of a marketing competition to say, hey, if you reach 100%, which was really a 50% take rate in a particular fiber service area, you got on the list to get done in that initial, $15 million layout. And that worked fantastic. For example, one kooky guy in my neighborhood had everybody sign up on the first day. So I went out door to door on texting. I was the kooky guy. But anyway,
I think the whole crowd knew that.
I had our area, I think, to like 150% in the first night. So it was like, guess whose area got done first? I was like, yeah, that's great. But again, that then market, what's that?
He lives next door to me. So.
But again, that helped, greatly with the marketing, and it worked. Right. So, I mean, the take rates that we've seen have been great.
I just don't want to push too much marketing and stuff if it's 3 years out or something.
Yeah, I would say set the expectations that we're looking at 2 years and this is the process. Okay. We have to do what's that?
I would say, 2 to 3. Tom, this is, well, it's it's FIFO, so it's first in, first out. So they do have, but you are National Grid, so that is a benefit. But then if there's anything else in their queue, they are going to work on the other applicants first, which Hamden is National Grid.
Nicely.
So Hamden, the governor and lieutenant governor did as well. No, but we will advocate through the utilities, but we do want to be realistic. It is FIFO, the first in, first out. And then Hamden has submitted 6-7 months ago, 6 months ago. So they already have submitted. So if we could
like 20 polls. Cindy, you had a question.
Yes, on the poll applications, does that involve the town at all, like public hearings or anything? Is that done strictly between you and National Grid?
So as long as you establish your license agreement with National Grid and Verizon, then we would submit those poll applications on your behalf. If they're setting a pole in a particular area, I know we talked about Prospect Street for the underground. If we had to set poles, then you would have to do that poll petition.
Public hearing.
If you wanted to move forward with the pilot area for the underground, for the easement, if you can't get through the water filtration and you had to set poles, then that would require the public hearing.
Okay.
But each step of the way of the poll application process, it's us helping, with East Longmeadow. You're sending the check in to for each area that, it's not FSAs with them, but each application is 200 polls.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's set up. We organize and run all that for you. We then give it all to you to then apply the check we drew, and all that is paid for direct from East Longmeadow.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we would make sure before you pay it, if there's any challenging of the polls, then those are all cleared up. But we would work directly with the town and the treasurer.
Before you pay for any of the construction costs.
And did I read correctly? We're estimating roughly 3,281 polls in town.
Yes.
I got a cheat sheet from before.
I was going to say, where did you find that?
Got all that good information from Andrew already.
Yes.
Yeah, overhead distribution, there's just over 102 miles. Underground distribution, it's just under 17 miles. Estimated pole count is 3,281. The physical dwelling units, potential units are 5,712. Anticipated take rate that we were working off of was 60%. anticipated subscribers, that would be 3,427 subscribers. So,
And it is on the slideshow as well.
and if anybody wants to go deeper in the financials, they can see those. But everything as far as the bond payment, I know in talking with Westfield's auditor and treasurer, they're finding that the bond rate right now is around 3.5%. I did the bond rate at 4%, just so you could see that in a little bit more conservative light. So a lot of what we do is conservative. So then when we come in, hopefully under budget, and you say, "Oh, this is great." But I have the numbers here for you for the 60, 50, and 40% take rates.
Any other questions?
Yes.
When it comes to like the differences between like the underground versus overhead, do you find that one area or another is more like error prone or subject to weather, more having issues, that kind of thing?
No, it's more on, the cost is, with, you have to get dig safe and then, trenching and all that. But what we have done for about half of the towns that we serve is a separate agreement for what we call a pole ride out. So every year in the spring, we'll do a pole ride out and we'll check all the trees if there's any growth encroaching. So those trees look like they're going to fall, that could cause, damage. We'll give all that information and the cost to get the maintenance done. So then we'll go and be proactive about tree trimming there. Right now, Asplund is our contractor for that. I don't know if the town DPW has a separate, backup contractor. You can, manage through that, or you can, allow us to manage through that process. So, but yeah, it's like recently we just had a huge outage, like microbursts go through Westfield 2 Thursdays ago. We had, over 6,000 customers down. On the fiber side, I think we lost like a handful. It's like Kevlar coated line, so the line might come down, but typically we're just putting it back up. If the pole breaks, we might just tack it to a tree, for the short term until the pole gets set, just to get it out of the road. One of the things, if there is an accident and a line does come down, please tell the police department and the fire department not to cut it. Just tell them to tack it up on a tree or whatever, because then it gets pretty expensive to replace it. We do have all the splicing equipment, things like that. But that can cause the outage to, take another day or so. If you have a 488 count fiber and putting the super light blue to the super light blue, if you should have brought a sample, but it is literally, smaller than a hair on your head, and trying to put it all together. That's what the group of guys does. That's not me. These aren't strong enough.
And it's threading a lot of needles.
Yeah.
But we would follow the communications. So if Spectrum's overhead, then on the phone, we would say, okay, we would do the walkout with PVC. And then we would just say, so your communications is currently overhead. We're going to follow that same path. Or, it's underground. Okay. Do you know if you have a spare conduit? At that point, we do an on-site consultation. They vet it out. The homeowner agrees. They mark out, don't go near the shrubs or whatever it is. And then they take pictures and all of that. And then call in a dig safe that would clear 72 hours later if trenching is required. And then the third appointment is actually your service activation. But it is reliable, like Tom said, and we haven't had any storms and all of that. It's really more on the power of, that's why people lose the internet. So we encourage people to have the UPS backup.
If they have the phone service.
If they have the phone service, yep.
Awesome.
But here you also have better cell reception. Majority of the hill towns, they didn't have the cell reception, so they're fully relying on this media to.
You have not been to our house.
All right.
Have a new tower.
It's not up and running yet.
I know.
That's true.
Okay, we have to thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate
you.
the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.
Excellent information. We greatly appreciate it.
All right. I only brought 4, I guess. So I'll go one to you and then make copies out to whoever. I know Marilyn wants one.
I'll share it with.
That's a copier before.
I'll scan it and
Thank you.
thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Andrew, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let us.
Thank
you.
Thank you for your time. Thanks for staying so late.
Yeah. You want Katrina on speaker for the chickens or you?
I can get a dial in for my.
Thank you.
That must be our remote.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, all right.